Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Flycast Partners webinar. My name is Rich Longo, and I'll be your host. Thank you for joining us for Cherwell Security, presented by Flycast very own Dean Pierce. Dean is one of our senior consultants here at Flycast and has been implementing IT service management software as well as configuring software using customer requirements to design incident management, problem management, change management processes, in addition to other ITIL processes and data integrations. Before we get started, Dean, let me introduce our organization. Flycast Partners is here to deliver a seriously amazing IT experience founded and staffed by personnel that have many years of experience in the IT space. We took the best ideas from these collective experiences and added the best components necessary to grow and become a leading value-added reseller in the North American IT market. We offer best-in-class implementation services and training in IT service management, IT asset management, IT operations management, and workload automation using ITIL best practice. Our professional services team can easily scale up or down to meet the IT needs of any customer, regardless of your size, complexity, or budgetary restrictions. Most importantly, we offer implementation services both on-site and remote. In today's current environment, that remote is very important to a lot of organizations. We'll also spend the time to train and reinforce your company's long-term IT success. Our ongoing remote administration support service offerings will enable your organization to focus on your normal day-to-day operations, saving you both precious time and money. Feel free to call us at 844-FLYCAST, that's 844-359-2278, or visit us on our website. Yes, visit our website, and you can chat with one of our IT experts, clicking on that right little box down at the bottom of the first page. We'll be happy to chat with you and answer any questions that you have, or just chat back and forth and talk about your environment with them. They're there for you Monday through Friday during normal business hours. I encourage you to go to our website and check out some of the upcoming presentations we have coming up as far as the different topics. Share them with your coworkers, sign up for things that you would like to attend, and also check out some of the events, live events that we have coming up throughout the country. Now, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn this presentation over to the star of the hour, Mr. Dean Pierce. Dean, I have just transferred control over to you, sir.
Sounds great. All right, let me go ahead and start sharing out.
Looks great.
Okay.
Perfect. Excellent.
Perfect. Okay, Cherwell Security. From application, team, and role levels, you can ease your security group complexity. Let's just dive right in. So the various security options within Cherwell, you have security groups, which controls the application rights, what you can do within the application or through the user interface. The business object rights, which are very similar to file permissions, add, edit, delete. There are also roles. Oops, let me go back. Different roles that are assigned to those security groups are available when you first log into Cherwell. You're probably familiar with the prompt that comes up. It controls your default dashboards, the object visibility, the custom search widgets, which is at the top right corner of the rich client. You also have user functionality of who is currently logged into the system utilizing the system function that's commonly referenced as current user rec ID. And you have team level functions that you can leverage as well. So if like the current login ID or current record ID rather is member of team help desk and you point to the team ID. So the configurable areas within Cherwell, as it relates to the security groups, and I'll go through a demo here towards the end of this webinar, but within the security group properties, you have the application rights in the example that I have shown here for the category of one step. Can they edit one steps that can run under any security group or this security group? Do they have access to other users one steps, team one steps, site one steps, et cetera, et cetera. There are also the business object aspects of the file, the view, the edit. You can constrain different records based on certain variables or different constraints throughout the system. You can control file attachments and the available roles that are tied to that security group or are available within that security group. Now, the roles, it controls visibility of the user interface. So based on the configuration of the role, and again, I'll go through some demos on this, but it controls, do they have access to change management from the new menu, or on the quick search on the left side, do they have visibility into that business object? When they log in using that specific role, what are the default dashboards that are automatically displayed upon logging into the system? The different views. You can add complexity. You may not want to leverage that, but the difference between a default view or adding in another custom view like a technician A view, technician B view, it just it extends the different capabilities throughout the system, but it does add complexity as well. You can define the custom search widget, again, in the top right of the rich client of what areas of Cherwell are going to be searchable within that widget, but that's tied to the role and the different available languages. Now, when we're talking about security group access, whenever you configure a user in Cherwell, a security group is required. That security group not only defines what they can do inside of the application, can they run one-steps in other teams, run searches in the global folder or their team folders, can they create dashboards, et cetera, but it also defines which roles that user will have access to. Overall, it's the security group that is tied to one or many roles, but overall, it's the security group specifically that grants rights to the business objects, as well as what they can do within the application itself. An example would be if Henri is a member of the help desk security group. The security group has 4 roles: help desk, sales, HR, and facilities. When Henry logs in, he'll have all 4 roles to choose from, but it's the security group that controls if they have access to the various business objects and what they can do within each record. They may be able to view and add incidents, but they can't update. Same goes for change, but for the CMDB, for that security group, they can view all records, but they can't add new ones, but they can update existing ones, changing users, locations, some of the metadata that's contained within the configuration management database. But when it comes to configuring various roles, it's difficult to say only use this role when logging in, as there's no control over who has access to that role except by tying it to that security group. So overall, it's the security group that controls what the user can do. The role defines what they can see when interacting with the system. So from left to right, you have the user that's tied to the security group. The security group has the 4 roles that are identified, and it also defines by business object what they can do from a view, add, edit, or delete perspective. And there's some advanced functionality that you can specify as well, but only one user can be tied to one security group, but multiple roles can be tied to different security groups. So let's say that we have security group A that has the help desk role. Security group B could also have the help desk role, but have HR and facilities, but not sales. So it can be fully customized, but when logging in, that user will always have all 4 of those roles available if they are exposed or available within the security group. So a couple different ways that you can identify your security layers is by laying it out in an Excel format. You list out all the major business objects or supporting business objects on the left side, and then you have the different levels of access horizontally, such as for the help desk, they need to have view and edit rights for incident, and then maybe for problem they have view, but they can't change the record, but they can add journals. So keeping track of the different security layers and the different permissions for each one of your security groups, you can lay it out in Excel in this fashion. Another example would be like approval. They can only approve their approvals, but they can see all of them. So that's one way to identify and lay out and document the different levels of security that you need within your organization. So once you have that laid out, I like to recommend to also identify the security layer by policy because it gets a little bit more in depth and uncover additional security layers that you may discover that either you have too many security groups or you may want to leverage some of the application's functionality to perform some of the team membership operations that's defined here. So in this example, users in this group will have visibility to all records in the system with the following exceptions. Incident and user fields, specific forms will be locked or read-only after submittal in the portal. This way, from a policy standpoint, by end users submitting items in the portal, locking down what they've submitted so that the help desk can't change it will preserve that data. Otherwise, you have to enable auditing and some additional functionality. But this is to ensure consistency in the end user requests and allow automated processes developed within Cherwell to be as automated as possible based on the information provided by the end user. So in order to, an example of that might be, in order to start a workflow from beginning to end, especially if there's approvals for hardware or if there's money involved, by locking down the end user submitted fields in after it's been submitted in the portal will allow a beginning to end workflow from completion, from beginning to end without having the capability of changing anything. So another example that I can go into a little bit further, it's, let's say that a new laptop is being requested. Well, there's equipment that is going to be tied to that. Either it needs to be procured, it might be transferred from another site, it might be in inventory. So the process from beginning to end by locking down those end user fields allows the facilitation of an approval process from beginning to end to be intact as much as possible, and it doesn't allow the capability for those items to be changed by the end user of saying, oh, I ordered a Dell Latitude laptop, but I really wanted a Mac. Let me jump into the end user portal and I'm going to change that when the approval process has already kicked off. That might interfere with some items. So from a policy standpoint, by locking that down from the end user relating to the help desk, it might aid in certain processes like that. Another item is like all records in the CMDB are read-only except for those managed by the help desk, like loaner laptops, projectors, et cetera, anything that's in inventory that gets on more of a team ownership level of security. Change requests is another one. They should be read-only unless the technician is the implementer. So if they happen to be a member of the owned by team or is the owned by technician that owns that record, they should be able to be assigned and complete the tasks related to those change requests. Users in this group can also run access one steps, dashboards, searches, et cetera, in the global folder only. And I'll delve a little bit deeper into some of the examples a little bit later. But additional functionality should be requested through an enhancement request and will be evaluated by committee. By identifying these from a policy standpoint, it allows to have the same capabilities throughout the entire system, but just given to different security groups. So the most restrictive would be like level 1 help desk, where you can call it technician. And then you have another security group that might be power user that has a little bit more application rights, but still the same policy applies. And then you might have a manager level and then of course an admin level. So depending on the number of security groups that you're wanting to identify and implement, you can come up with a separate policy for each one of those. So let's go a little bit further into a user complexity example. So Henri is a help desk coordinator as his primary role. Previously, he was involved in asset management, and at times he is a backup for the asset management team and fills in to approve transfer requests for equipment and assists in imaging equipment throughout the day. Being a member of that level 1 help desk security group, he's not able to update any CMDB records in the system, only the ones assigned to his team. The issue comes in is that users can only be assigned one security group, but multiple roles. From a security group perspective, Henri cannot be assigned to two different security groups. Either someone will have to change a security group to allow that additional access, or he needs to have two IDs. Or in place of that, you can leverage team memberships in this example. So where if the current logged in user is a member of the team that owns the record, that they have full control over it. So it's leveraging not only security group requirements, but adding in a policy on top of that to say throughout the system that only the users that own the record can actually have full control over it. Those users that are not a member of the team, they can only add journal notes, maybe add attachments, and that's it. So having a combination of both security group rights from a record level of I can edit, I can view, edit, delete those items, plus adding in the policy-based security from a team membership perspective will meet this complexity example and take care of that requirement. And again, I will be demoing this. So to expand on the team membership capabilities, if the current user is a member of a team that owns or is assigned the record, you can give them full control. So an example would be in the configuration management database where all the config computer records are typically assigned to members of the service desk team or to the team itself. And any user that is a member of that team has full control over it. The networking CMDB object, maybe it's the networking team or software for the DevOps team. And incident as a major business object, it depends. An incident record could come in and it starts with the service desk, but if your policy allows them to transfer or reassign incident records to the networking team, maybe it's the networking team once they receive ownership of that they have only full control over it. The help desk can't, or maybe it's a combination of both. But if you set it up from a policy-based perspective where only a member of the team that owns the record can change ownership of that and get onto more of a policy-based management style for implementing these type of things might be able to take care of this type of requirement, because it can get out of control really, really fast if you have to have every single different combination of different rights throughout the entire system. I've seen some clients where they have 50 security groups, 60 security groups, that has a combination of people that need to work on the CMDB, but they also work on change management, they also work on problem, they work on this, and so on and so forth, and they have the security group rights specified as such. And it's a large combination, and essentially they are customizing the application almost to the user level, where there's almost one security group for every user based on their roles within the system. But easing that complexity might be to leverage the team membership functionality that I'll demo here in just a moment. Security group concerns. Some of the common issues. There may be times where complete records do need to be hidden in the system that may contain user ID or passwords that don't need to be visible to other teams or users throughout the system. The ways to do it are to limit the records by security group, and it may cause task and supporting object issues. And what I mean by that is, if let's say that we limit the records for the service desk to only see records if the service desk owns that record. That visibility statement will just mean that only they can see the incident record, but nobody else can. But there may be some tasks that are created against or tied to that incident record, but it's assigned to the networking team. It's assigned to the level 3 help desk team. Because those other teams may not be able to view that actual incident record, the relationships are going to break when they're interacting with that record ID. Another area is encrypted fields that you can leverage and or field visibility, locking down the application so that nobody else can see or write one steps to show pop-ups of the information that's stored in certain fields. So it's a balance between application security, security group, and perhaps team membership items. And this is where I'm going to get into a demo.
Really exciting stuff.
It is. Okay. So I do have a sandbox that's shown here. And in this example, I'm going to go ahead and search for an incident. And currently, I am logged in as the Cherwell admin team, and I am a member of IT management. That is my default team. I'm able to reassign this ticket to either a different user or a different team, and I have full control over this completely. But let's look at all tickets within the system. I had already set up a visibility or disabling exception where if I'm not a member of the team that owns the record, I cannot click on these one steps to reassign it. But if I go back to that first record, because I am a member of IT management, I can change that team. So this is the type of functionality that you can leverage in the system by having one security group, but at the business object level, either major, supporting, or even certain lookup tables, you can leverage this type of functionality in the system to ease your security group complexity. And how that is done, if I go ahead and create a new blueprint, I will go ahead and edit the incident form. And on this one, these two link labels here, if I select both of those and I come up to this expression to disable controls, it's a little no button. And I built an expression and just tied it here. I did it in an embedded expression on the left side that looks at the current user record ID, and I used the operator of is member of team, and I reference the assigned to team ID. If this value is true, which is what the custom expression is saying, is not equal to true, then I'm going to disable that capability. So I'm able to do that for visibility statements, disabling statements, a lot of calculations throughout the system. I can hide complete areas as I'm interacting with specific business objects throughout the entire system by just doing that. I can also come down to the incident overview form, and I can either enable or disable any of the actions also associated with the incident records based on the current logged in user being a member of the team that owns the record as well. I can, let's say that we have an embedded form here. I might have to go to the specifics area and say that it's read only. I can do it on field properties as well. So let's say that call source. If I'm also not a member of the team that owns the record, I can mark it as read-only as well. And of course, you can also store this as a common function within the incident business object itself and always reference it so that you can reuse it as well. So that's an example of some of the capabilities throughout the system in order to reduce the number of security groups that you have within your organization. Now, I'd like to go through and review some of the security group setup and configurations. Usually when I'm working with a new client and we're beginning the conversation of how many security groups do you need? What are the different areas that you want to restrict access to? And jumping into the security groups here, let me choose level 1 help desk here. I first start by, let me maximize this. I first start by going through the IT service desk level 1 or whatever the main group that a good majority of the rich client users or the licensed users are going to be leveraging. or being assigned. And I start going through the application rights. So this rights tab inside of Cherwell controls what you can do inside of the application. So when I click new here, what are the business objects that I can see here? I can control it not only at the security group level, I can control it at the role level as well, and I'll show that in a moment as well. But specifically, it's showing what is shown here from a security group access level, and then what's shown here on the new menu. And if I go to One-Step Manager, what can I see here? The global folder is for everybody within the system, but do I have access to other people's teams? Show one steps for all teams. Do I have this type of functionality from a technician perspective? So as I'm going through these different rights, you have the default right, and there's a lot more capabilities that are out here, but the main ones that are of some significant risk that I cover in depth are one steps. So can they access other users' one steps? Can they access other users or other team one steps? They're able to run it. They're able to add, edit, delete, from other users. So I start going through the application of what they can do. From a reporting standpoint, can they create reports in the system? Can they create dashboards? Can they create searches? If so, where are they able to do those within the application? So if I come into searches here, not scheduler, searches, they can run global searches. They can run role searches, site searches, et cetera, et cetera. So should they have the capability of creating their own dashboards, creating their own widgets, creating their own reports, creating their own one steps? From that perspective, limiting the application capabilities at the security group level, I think, is more important than certain visibility. But let's say that IT service desk level 1 shouldn't be able to look at networking tickets. Let's take incident as an example. Usually from the business object perspective, incident, more times than not, a lot of organizations allow anybody who has access to the system to view any records throughout the system. But in those cases where you have to limit some of those records at the security group level is where I would recommend that you limit that. So let's say that incident, the IT service desk level 1 shouldn't be able to look at any tickets that are assigned to the third level support team. They can transfer it and they can save the ticket, but once it leaves their queue, that they shouldn't be able to see it. This would completely prevent them from searching for those types of tickets throughout the system. So from a security group perspective, you can certainly limit those down. But for the good majority of organizations out there, having everybody have view access and locking it down from a team membership perspective or from the role level might be better suited in order to ease the complexity throughout the system. But you also have, file attachment. They can import files, link files, but that's depending on if they do have the access or if the business object supports attachments. The security group controls that. But here you can also add in multiple roles, and you can see how many users are assigned to that security group. So in addition to the security group, the roles here, typically there would be at least one role per security group that is out there. But in this example, other than what has been identified at the security group level, from a business object perspective, you can control what business objects are visible or available within the role. So even though that they may have view access and there's other functionality throughout the system that may point to certain areas, from the application perspective, once they log into the system, if you don't want them to see agreement, because that might be more towards a financial aspect or vendor management or purchasing. They might not be able to see announcements that's controlled by other teams. So from an IT service desk perspective, from the role perspective, they don't need to see a lot of these items. They don't need to see I don't know, systems. Let's just choose a few of these. Operational tasks. Let me just take out knowledge article here. Because with me logged into the current role that I'm on, I'll be able to create new knowledge article. So from a security group perspective, I can do that, but by making that change to the service desk, let me go ahead and change my role by logging out. And I select IT Service Desk. Once I made that change, I'm not able to see it in the new menu at all. If I come up and attempt to, even though from a security group perspective that I have add capabilities, I won't be able to search for it. I can't build a quick search against it. Knowledge article will not appear here at all for me. So from the role perspective, leaving the security group open-ended, but then constraining it based off of the role allows you for easier simplicity over the management of your security groups. And you could also define the default dashboards throughout the system. So if the IT service desk, you have one that's defined for them versus manager, you can create those as well. There are also custom views here. So for the smart client, which is the rich client, if you had a separate view configured, and that would be coming in here, default versus portal view, let's say that you had a technician level 3 view, you can assign that specific role to use that view. So those are the different ways that you can leverage different capabilities of the system to reduce the number of security groups that you have throughout the system. So you can leverage more of the expressions and clauses and system functions throughout the application.
We don't have any questions down waiting for us here at all. If this is any questions that you might have, folks, please go ahead and you can type them in the GoToWebinar platform, or you can you can call them in or email us at info@flycastpartners.com. Thank you so much, Dean. This is a great webinar. It's great information. I learned a lot, actually, like everything about this aspect of Cherwell. I didn't know anything about it till today. So I want to thank you for that. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day for this. Folks, if you have any questions, please reach out to us at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. Or email us at info@flycastpartners.com, or chat with us live on our website on the bottom right-hand side. We'd be happy to chat with you. They're waiting and standing by just for you. With that being said, until our next webinar, we'll see you then.